before we get fully started, I do want to mention a couple of things. The first is STEM Map. This is a really critical tool that we're focusing on here in NeoSTEM. Many of you have already been involved. This is our opportunity to really get a good idea of everything that's happening in the region for a number of reasons. Number one, we just want to know. We want to know what's out there. We want to know how we can collaborate. We want to know where there are deserts and activities so that we can start to target those regions of the city. And we want to make sure that we're able to pair students, teachers, parents with the appropriate opportunities. So please make sure, if you haven't already, to log into STEM Map. There's a link there in the chat. Log into STEM Map, get your organization's information in there, and learn more about how you can make sure that all of your events are posted there and are available to everybody in the region. I also want to call attention to a really cool new initiative. You've heard us talking about it a little bit. It's called I Am STEM. Have you looked at any of the profiles yet? I hope so. If you haven't, there's a link coming up here in the chat in just a second that you can take a look at. The I Am STEM website is up and running, and we're thrilled to highlight industry leaders in IT, manufacturing, healthcare, nonprofit, and more, as well as leaders from the Cleveland Clinic and CMSD. That link is in the chat, and we'd love for each of you to take a look and give us your feedback. A cat just climbed in front of my camera, so I'm going to do this really quickly and apologize for it. And give us your feedback so we can continue to grow that. This is the initiative we've been talking about for a while. It starts at this website, but what we envision is getting these faces out in front of Cleveland youth and Cleveland citizens in all sorts of ways and matters. So this is going to be an initiative that keeps on growing. We know that people, the kids, need to see people who look like them, people from our region, people who they can look up to out in front so that they can start to think about these STEM career paths as something possible for them. And this is one of the ways that we're going to be doing that. So please take a look, give feedback. If you have people to nominate, please send those to Alyssa and let us know what else we should be doing. All right, on to the main show. Today, we're going to start with Chris Spence of the New Growth Group, who's going to offer an overview of several very large federal grant opportunities. Some of you may have been on the call, the national call a few days ago, where we learned about some of these opportunities. I know there's a lot of information there for me, so you probably will have questions. Make sure you kind of keep track of those, and we'll give you an opportunity to ask them at the end. A few really key components for today. Number one, understanding the opportunity. It's big. Number two, understanding how NeoSTEM can play a key role in this opportunity. We have Chris here. Chris's footprint is national, but we have him here in the city, and he's going to help us think about the ways that we can come together to potentially access some of these funds to really make a difference in the region. And number three, understanding what's already taking shape in our region and how we're able to support that work. So if you haven't already, please make sure that you put your name and all of that stuff into the chat. A little background on Chris Spence before we turn things over to him. Chris and New Growth Group have been working with TIES to support various grant opportunities and to provide leadership around our initiatives related to workforce alignment. Chris founded New Growth in 2010. His goal was and remains to provide high quality services and workforce development expertise that help leaders throughout the U.S. make a difference in their communities. A product of the industrial Midwest here in Cleveland, Chris is grateful to work with so many people across America dedicated to making their communities better. And New Growth has partnered with over 100 organizations on grant writing assignments, including many successes with the Economic Development Administration, where these opportunities are coming. Chris spoke to the SLECOP, the National Ecosystem Community, earlier to offer an overview of several of these opportunities. The enthusiasm and feedback was great, so we thought that since he's ours, we'd ask him to join us today. He'll offer a similar overview. So if you were in that other call, you're going to see a couple things repeated. That's okay. There's a lot of dense information. And then we're going to have some discussion about the work that is planned by several Northeast Ohio organizations in response to one of the initiatives, the Build Back Better $1 billion opportunity. And finally, we'll have a discussion about how NeoSTEM and its interests can or should be represented in some of these projects. So Chris, what can you tell us about all of these opportunities? There are so many.
Yeah, thanks, Jeremy. Let me throw some slides up here. Can everyone see that? Thanks for the intro, Jeremy. Yeah, I'm located here in Cleveland, the Cleveland area, coming to you from my command center in Cleveland Heights. New Growth Group is the name of my organization. We're a workforce and economic development consulting group, and grant writing is a big part of what we do. And so today I am talking about a set of grants that the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration has put out. They're under a program called ARPA, which is stimulus money. It stands for the American Rescue Plan Act. For those of you that want to dig deeper into these programs, I've got a couple of resources here on the slide. The first is EDA's website, where they offer some really great summary materials, as well as webinar materials where they dive deeper into each of the ARPA programs, as well as a link to EDA's investment priorities, which outlines some of the key criteria and things they want applicants to be thinking about when they apply. And then a link to grants.gov. If anyone is unfamiliar with federal grant applications, grants.gov is a starting place. It's the portal where you upload grants. For any of you that are familiar with grants.gov, my apologies and my sympathies. I'm right there with you. Okay, so EDA ARPA. The Economic Development Administration has $3 billion in supplemental funding that they are offering via a grant application process. They're packaging the funding opportunities in 6 programs. You may notice that I have 7 bullets up on the slide, and that's because the last bullet, which is focusing on coal communities, is pulled. That 300 million for coal communities is actually pulled throughout the other 6 programs. So there are 6 programs, and then throughout those 6 programs, there is money set aside totaling 300 million intended for coal communities. We're going to talk about Build Back Better regional challenge in more depth, and so I'll skip past that one and just give some context on the other grant opportunities, just in case any of them sound interesting. Again, if any of it resonates with you, you can go to that EDA website that was on the previous slide to learn more. So the Good Jobs Challenge grant, which is the second one down, is a grant opportunity. It has a deadline in January. There's $500 million available, and it is a workforce development grant. It intends to fund essentially projects in 3 tiers. The first tier is for systemic improvement with a special focus on the development or enhancement of sector partnerships. The second tier of the Good Jobs Challenge is focused on program development with an emphasis on things like curriculum design or development or enhancement. You could potentially purchase some equipment or supplies, focusing on workforce development or education training pathway development. And then the third tier in Good Jobs Challenge is focused on participant and student throughput. And so that is the tier of the program that could provide things like supportive services or other sorts of activities intended to serve individuals that are going through the programs that were designed in tier 2. Moving on to economic adjustment assistance. This is one of EDA's longstanding programs. It has received supplemental funding under the ARPA program. EDA, through the EAA program, essentially funds 2 types of projects. The first are called construction projects, and it can pay for the construction of a building or a heavy renovation or an infrastructure improvement, such as a road or a sewer or some other sort of infrastructure. They call that a construction project. And then the other type of project under economic adjustment assistance is called non-construction. And that typically pays for what I would call business technical assistance projects. Services such as what a business might receive at an incubator, or entrepreneurship support and consulting services, or business financing such as a revolving loan fund. Those are the types of projects that can be supported under the non-construction part of EAA. The next one down, Indigenous communities, is the EAA program, but targeting Indigenous communities. And so applicants could be a city or a county or a tribal organization, but focusing on Indigenous communities. Travel, tourism, and outdoor rec, which is the next one down, is also very similar to the Economic Adjustment Assistance Program, but aiming at communities that have been hard hit by job losses and pandemic-related job losses in travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation sector.
I can get my headphones on. Oh, you have.
And again, in that one, construction and non-construction grant opportunities, but with a goal of supporting economic recovery or growth in travel, tourism, and outdoor recreation sectors. And then the final program is called Statewide Planning, Research, and Networks. And that's a program that offers 3 sub-programs. The first one is called Statewide Planning. And that is for organizations such as a governor's office or a state economic development agency to do some sort of forward-looking strategic planning. So if there's an organization that has a statewide vantage point that wants to do some forward thinking, the statewide planning grant would be a candidate. Then the next opportunity within that is called research, and that is for research organizations that study economic development topics. So a university research center or a nonprofit think tank that researches economic development and furthers knowledge of the economic development field, what's working, what are best practices, and in a research environment. That's what that grant is for. And then the third part of that final bullet is the networks opportunity, which is looking to enhance or expand nationwide communities of practice that specifically engage grantees across all of these EDA programs and bring them into a community of practice that will enhance the effectiveness of their grant implementation. So that's just a quick overview. I'm going to dive into Build Back Better a little more deeply, but if any of these others sound interesting, you can go to that EDA website to learn more. Okay, Build Back Better. There's $1 billion available for the purposes for regional applicants to grow regional industry clusters or scale existing ones through planning, infrastructure, innovation, entrepreneurship, workforce development, access to capital, and more. The program is being offered in 2 phases, and the first phase applications are due October 19th. What is that, 6 or 8 weeks away? 50 to 60 regional coalitions of partnering entities will be awarded up to $500,000 in technical assistance funds. The intent of phase 1, you can think of it as a planning grant or a readiness grant. Ultimately, the 50 to 60 grants that are awarded under phase 1 will become the pool of eligible candidates who could potentially be awarded a phase 2 grant. And the phase 2 grants can go up to 100 million. With an expected range of 25 to 75 million. Those funds are intended to support projects, 3 to 8 projects that are aiming at growing a regional growth cluster. The term cluster, to me, it can refer to an economic sector such as manufacturing or a technology sector. It could also refer to a kind of a cross-cutting technology that impacts multiple economic sectors. The applicants have some flexibility to define what their regions are. They also have some flexibility to define what their clusters are. The 3 to 8 projects that regions are asked to outline in phase 1 and then deepen in their phase 2 applications are either construction projects or non-construction projects in the same using the same definitions that I explained in the previous slide. So it could be, for example, the construction or heavy renovation of a training center, of a research facility, of some element of infrastructure that supports cluster growth. It could also be a project that's focusing on non-construction activities, such as an incubator or entrepreneurship service, or some sort of business technical assistance. All of it cohesively needs to work together to support regional growth clusters, and it's up to the applicant to explain why those projects have been selected, the details of what those projects entail, and how it all adds up to supporting the growth of the cluster that was identified. And I can do my best to answer questions as we move forward. I've got a couple of additional slides that provide some key specs and then some other elements of the Build Back Better applications. The first is that the phase 1 submission deadline is October 19th, as I mentioned, with awards expected by December 8th. You can apply for a period of performance for those grants of 12 to 24 months. You'll notice that the phase 2 applications are due in March, so only about 6 months away. And so if you apply for just doing some back of the envelope math, if you do a 12 to 24 month period of performance in phase 1, but then the phase 2 applications are due in March, that means you do not make it all the way through phase 1 before you submit your phase 2 application. And so basically they're giving folks a little bit of lead time to organize their thoughts around a phase 1 application process, and then get a jump on some of the planning and readiness activities that may ultimately support the success of phase 2. And then the phase 2 period of performance can be up to 48 months. In phase 2, they're indicating that they're expecting most grants to be in the $25 to $75 million range. And so just doing a little back of the envelope math, they want you to apply for to specify 3 to 8 projects, and you can go up to 75 million. So 75 million divided by 8 projects means somewhere in the 9 million range, potentially per project. You of course would take a little bit off the top to support project management and potentially some indirect costs depending on what the projects are. So the per project zone is likely less than 9 million, but that's the sort of zone we're talking about. You can see the list of eligible applicants at the bottom. Just to interpret some of the EDAEs here. District organizations are organizations that have gone through a process to be sort of ordained by EDA as keepers of regional economic development strategies. Not every region has one, but some do. Skipping through the list, political subdivisions of a state or consortium just means like a county or a city. It just means a smaller political subdivision. In a regional application, you could have a consortium of counties or locations that join one application. And then, of course, public or private nonprofit organizations. These, given the scale of these grants, the types of nonprofit organizations likely to be successful in their applications are ones that have large regional footprints, have the ability to engage broadly within a region, and work in lockstep with cities and counties in their regions. And then just moving forward, just putting up on the screen some of EDA's investment priorities: equity, recovery and resilience, with special focus on the pandemic in this. Typically, EDA talks about recovery and resilience, sometimes in the context of natural disasters, other times in the context of either some sort of a large economic event, such as the closure of a major plant, or in the case of cities like Cleveland that are going through, decades-long economic restructuring, recovering from changes that have occurred in a principal industry such as manufacturing. Manufacturing is named as an investment priority. It's the only industry sector that gets named, but that doesn't mean you can't define your cluster as a different industry, or say a component that a subcomponent or technology related to manufacturing. And then you can see the other priorities there. One thing to note is that EDA does not invest in K-12 projects. The key outcomes that EDA is looking for are things like folks going back to work, adults going back to work, industry growth, business growth or expansion. But by and large, it is not an industry that is focused on making investments in K-12 projects. I understand that K-12, and I'm with you for those of you that might be thinking that K-12 is inextricably linked to economic development. EDA invests, they have their definition of economic development, and they leave the grant making and education to other agencies. And so they're, not to say that there aren't opportunities potentially for projects that impact the K-12 space to be supported in Build Back Better, but by and large, that's not their focus. And then just a link to some success stories. EDA has a website that gives examples of projects that have been funded recently. And it's things like makerspaces, incubators, business technical assistance centers, construction of education and training centers, research and commercialization center construction, or construction of vital infrastructure tied to economic growth, and revolving loan funds, making financing available to businesses for economic development purposes is also in the purview of EDA. So I will stop there.
Thank you, Chris. So we're going to have more time for questions. We do have two more people who are going to speak to us a little bit. So we do have plenty of time for questions. If you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the chat. Chris, before we move on, I do want to throw a couple to you really quick. Somebody earlier was asking if they can have access to these slides. Is that something that you're willing to share with the links and everything?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we will get those slides to you either during this webinar right now, or listener John will email those out as part of the follow-up email. Howen, are you there? I'm not sure I'm saying your name right, but are you there with us?
Yeah, yes, I am.
Would you mind asking your question?
Yeah, so I think I'm writing on the, let me see. So yeah, I do have a question for like a requirement for apply. So for the grant you talk about, so for a question, I think it's 5 for public or private nonprofit, that have to relate to political supervision of state. What does that mean? Like, if we work with a school district, can I apply for or no?
You could, however, keeping in mind that EDA does not generally invest in K-12 projects.
Okay.
That would, it does not make you ineligible, but it would be fairly unlikely that you would get funded just because of the priorities that EDA has.
Okay, that one's focused on EDA. Okay, thank you so much. I got it. Thank you.
Thank you for your question. And Chris, thank you for that. If anyone else has any questions, please make sure to put those in the chat and we'll go to those in a little bit. Now we'll hear from Tracy Francescone of Magnet to explain what the Greater Cleveland Growth Partnership, Magnet, and Team Neo are planning as part of the large Build Back Better grant. Tracy, can you fill us in on the plan and share with us a little bit about what you've been thinking of the ways that NeoSTEM and its partners might be able to help support this work?
Sure. Thanks, everyone. So as Chris just said, for phase 1 of the Build Back Better Challenge, the EDA is only going to fund 50 to 60 regional coalitions nationwide. So therefore, the competitiveness of this is significant. And as a region, it's important that we really come forth with our best effort and don't submit a bunch of different applications. So Magnet, Team Neo, and Greater Cleveland Partnership, in addition to a number of other partners in Summit, Stark, and Mahoning counties, have really been talking about a regional approach centered on advanced manufacturing and how we can really transform the supply and grow the supply chain that Northeast Ohio is already so adept at. So we're looking at clusters surrounding aerospace, energy storage, medical manufacturing, polymers, and water as kind of the project areas. This is still very much in the concept development phase, but that's where we're headed. In terms of where NeoSTEM can plug in, I think particularly in phase 2 during the implementation phase, there certainly could be opportunity related to talent development in these specific clusters. So I think, we'll certainly keep this group apprised, and if anyone has any specific thoughts or interests in any of those clusters that I mentioned, we'd welcome any feedback that you have.
Thank you, Tracy. And our final presenter today, before we go to your questions, is Janine Kaiser from Fund for Our Economic Future, who's going to explain some of the fund's thinking around some of the other initiatives that Chris shared. Janine works with education, workforce, industry, and civic stakeholders to help build systemic supports and skill development opportunities for Northeast Ohio residents in alignment with well-paying, in-demand jobs in the region. Self-proclaimed data nerd, she also supports the fund's research and analysis activities, helping to understand trends, impacts, and opportunities to apply learning to new efforts. Janine's from Buffalo, New York, another great city on the rise in the Great Lakes region, and has a bachelor's degree in economics from Case. She also holds a master's in public policy from the Goldman School of Public Policy at UC Berkeley. Before returning to Cleveland, she lived and worked in the San Francisco Bay Area, where she led an independent consulting practice. Janine, can you tell us a little bit about the thinking at the fund and how NeoSTEM can be involved there?
Yes, and thanks, Jeremy, for that very robust introduction. So thanks for bearing with that all. So as Jeremy mentioned, my name is Janine Kaiser. I serve as the director of the Cleveland Innovation Project Talent Initiative, housed out of the Fund for Economic Future. I also facilitate the Workforce Funders Group in Cuyahoga County. So I'm actually going to speak a little bit about one of the other opportunities that Chris mentioned today, which is the Good Jobs Challenge. So this is another one that is big, it's going to be competitive, it could be important and transformational in our region. And so the focus of this grant, as Chris mentioned earlier, is really about strengthening and developing regional workforce training systems. The fund is involved in this. The Fund for Economic Future, which is a funding collaborative that focuses on growth and opportunity in Northeast Ohio. We're involved in this because we care a lot about workforce and job preparation. And we're involved in it also because we have a regional footprint that spans the counties that Tracy just mentioned. And so we're playing a role in this grant to help convene partners to ensure we bring forward a really competitive, robust, and equitable application. So I'm actually not the one leading this work for my team or on the fund team. Bashara Addison, formerly of Towards Employment, will be driving these conversations in our region. But what I did want to do is provide a really quick update on where we stand and what the process will look like relative to this grant. So unlike the Build Back Better grant, which has a really quick timeline, we have a little bit more runway on Good Jobs Challenge. So that's grant, as Chris I think mentioned, is due in January 2022. It has a focus on, as I mentioned, this regional workforce systems training has program development pieces and has worker and trainee support pieces to it. K-12 will matter in this application. And I think that one of the things that we are sorting out now is how best to collect input and perspectives from partners. But we do know that one of the places that will be important to be thinking about is how the workforce system connects in with K-12. So there's going to be more opportunities to learn about and be engaged with this work. One thing I'll commit to is make sure to keep you apprised as the NeoSTEM network about ways to do that. But right now we're just getting our arms around the process. And so at present, Bashar is engaging with a variety of partners, starting with our 2- and 4-year partners in some cases, as well as our existing sector partnership partners in the region. One of the early hypotheses is that there's an opportunity around work-based learning in particular, as well as reinforcing supportive services in key sectors. And so that's going to be refined and shaped, and we will ensure we keep you apprised about how best to engage. I think that's all I had on my list to say. So I think the other avenue for engagement beyond the fund itself is working with your sector partnership partners. And so there are a number of sector partnerships in our region housed out of Connexus NEO in Akron, Summit County, in Cuyahoga County. We have a number of them out of Magnet, out of Greater Cleveland Partnership and the Right collaboration, as well as out of Cuyahoga Community College. And so the other avenue, the main avenue for existing partners will be to connect in through those partnerships also. So I think those are the main points I wanted to raise, and we will keep you apprised and be listening in future conversations.
Thank you, Janine. And we do have a couple of questions in so far. If you have any other questions, please let us know in the chat. First up, Robin, are you there with us to ask your question? I think primarily to Chris, although Janine, Tracy, please feel free to jump in if you have additional information. Robin, are you there with us? It looks like Robin left, but I'm going to go ahead and ask her a question anyway. So Robin is asking, we hear that this initiative, Chris, is very not focused on K-12. But if that's our focus, if I work for an organization that is entirely or primarily K-12, what should we be thinking about? Are there ways to tie in? Are there ways to craft and ask that involves people that are not specifically job and work?
Yeah, I would think about that in a couple of ways. Janine mentioned one, which is the tie-in between K-12 and the adult-facing serving projects is important. And there are different ways that you could think about those sorts of tie-ins. One could be programmatically. So as students are leaving K-12, what are the sorts of off-ramp or close to graduation programs and services that students receive that ultimately prepare them to enter the workforce or into a post-secondary program that's targeted towards a certain sector or cluster. The outcomes of the EDA, of all of the EDA programs, really need to be focused on job growth and industry growth. And so making the argument that individuals that are a little farther upstream, they're a little younger, they're part of the emerging workforce, within the grant period of performance can serve that larger economic development goal is the key. EDA historically doesn't award money to K-12 districts. I won't say they've never done it, but I've not seen it. I've been writing grants for about 15 years. And so it's if they do it, it's unusual that they do it, which means that if you're if you're a K-12 district, or if you're an organization that partners with K-12, then I think the approach for participating in a project like this has everything to do with either serving projects that have goals that I was mentioning before, or collaborating possibly in an indirect way, to the extent that projects are being developed that can be aligned with what your programmatic goals are and can serve your organizational, your programmatic objectives, then that's another way that you can plug in. And then the one last thing that I would say is that on the construction projects, potentially there could be dual uses for spaces, right? So if you're going to develop a training center, the application to EDA would be focused on the adult uses of that training center, but that does not mean that K-12 students or kids can't go in the facility. And so there can be sort of general purpose resources that have multiple uses.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you for that. I know that we as a organization have been very focused on what jobs look like starting in preschool and how we really think about that as a holistic system. And what I don't want is for anybody who's in this call to get kind of scared away from that work because of this. I think, I could be wrong. I don't know what I'm talking about, Chris. You tell me if I'm wrong. But I think that part of the opportunity here is that if there's a specifically job and workforce development level ask that is funded, that will ultimately trickle down, because there is still going to be a need for aligning schools, aligning out of school time organizations. And so with those additional resources, that will be able to trickle down. So I do want everybody, I hope, to continue to think about the ways that will kind of interplay with all of this. I have another question.
Jeremy,
Yep,
I have one other thought to just add, and it's that so EDA has its funding priorities. EDA is not the only federal agency that's impacted by ARPA funds, ARPA being the federal stimulus. So last year, the stimulus, the CARES Act, which was last year's stimulus, ended up being distributed across a lot of agencies, including the Department of Education. And so there were programs a year ago that had K-12 written all over and throughout. And so keep your eyes peeled, especially focusing on the Department of Ed. If we start to see ARPA programs come down through that agency, then there could potentially be opportunities there.
Perfect. Thank you. Katie, you had a question for Janine, I believe. Are you there with us? Can you ask your question?
Oh, yeah, I think that I might have gotten it answered, but I just wanted to kind of be able to follow up specifically about that grant opportunity, because I don't have like that specific piece to it, but it might be a larger like institution thing. She had mentioned Tri-C, and so we just have a lot of emphasis now going into workforce development, specifically in Northeast Ohio, and the majority of our grads are still in this area, so I think it's a good fit.
Perfect. Thank you, Katie, for bringing that up. I think it's still important for people to hear, even though your question got kind of answered, somebody else might not have kind of connected those dots. So we appreciate you bringing those dots together. All right, we only have about 20 minutes left. Frankly, I'm not sure, but my gut is that we're not going to go the whole time. I'm sure you're super bummed about that, to have a little bit of extra time left in your days. What we'd like to do now really quickly is I'm looking around the room for the first time, frankly, in a while. I see a lot of names and faces that are new. So we're going to do a quick lightning round before we close of introductions, and I'll tell you about that in a second. While we're doing that, if you have any other questions, and I think I'm actually getting one popping in right now that I'm going to go to. If any other questions come up, please go ahead and put those in the chat, and we will get to those before we close. Alyssa, I know that you were texting me a question about equity, but I am not seeing it in the chat. Can you let us know who's asking the question?
Yeah. So the question is actually from me, but I suspect that others, are wondering the same thing. How, with the work, the grants as they're developing and unfolding, how are we ensuring that diversity and equity are being baked into the plans as they're being developed? Just kind of a general question to I don't know, to Tracy or to Janine or to Chris. Anybody?
I can take our first pass, and then Tracy, feel free to jump into. I can speak from the Good Job Challenge perspective. We're thinking about this in a couple of ways. One is about who is served. And so thinking about and tailoring to, and this is an explicit piece of the Good Job Challenge description, and what they're endeavoring to do is ensuring that we are targeting both diverse populations, but also folks that are facing barriers. Second is about who is designing. So while I mentioned a bunch of organizations in my examples, part of what we are wanting to make sure that we do is hear from organizations that are directly serving both majority workers of color or students of color in some cases, or are direct provide services or supports that help people complete their programs. So those are two pieces that we are ensuring are embedded from a design perspective. And then third is about program design. And so work-based learning in particular is an important equity strategy for many workers, and along with embedded supportive services. And so part of what we're thinking about is how not only is the process reflecting diverse input and input that is grounded in experiences that is proximate to the workers we're trying to serve with this. Second is with the work itself and the proposal itself, we think needs to have explicit and direct supports embedded to ensure that there is opportunity to advance for all workers, but especially workers that are facing a lot of barriers.
I can just add for Build Back Better. I mean, I think we're employing a lot of those same strategies. I know Greater Cleveland Partnership is really taking the lead on this and bringing in more external partners like the Urban League and the Northeast Ohio Hispanic Business Center. In addition, the planning is aligning around the blueprint for manufacturing in Northeast Ohio, which was launched earlier this summer and is a result of a couple of years of work by many different stakeholders in Northeast Ohio, and it was developed with a equity and inclusion lens. So a lot of that is tying directly to that. That's what I can add.
Well, thank you both. We appreciate those insights. Alyssa, I just see you unmuting. Do you have something else to add?
No, I think, our plan now is to have people kind of share a little bit about their work, as you were just starting to introduce that, and that actually might be really helpful for Janine and Tracy and Chris, to the extent that he's, engaged in some of this as well. It might be very helpful to get, and it's certainly the people that are on this call. I think, as Jeremy explained in the beginning, this is a very small meeting for us, in part because it's the day after the holiday, and also because it's Rosh Hashanah. And we just didn't want to cancel today's meeting. So we will be, as Jeremy alluded, we'll be sharing this recording, but no, please go ahead, Jeremy.
Thank you, Alyssa. All right, so what I'd like to do, because there's a lot of new faces, is do kind of a quick round. So I'm hoping you can share is your name, your organization. If your organization something, I'm going to go, I think, to Karen here first. She works at the Great Lakes Science Center. Everyone knows what that is. If your organization is something that we might not have heard of, maybe just a quick, one sentence description of what it is. But what I'd really like to hear from you is, at your organization right now, what's your biggest need right now? And what's the biggest resource that you have that others might want to tap into? So what do you need to make your work even better? And what resources do you have that might make other people's work even better, or, student experience? So Karen, you want to kick us off?
Sure, thank you. So my name is Karen Torgo. I'm the Senior Manager of STEM Programs and Evaluation at the Great Lakes Science Center. And the biggest need right now from our organization is, and I apologize, my dog was quiet this whole time and now she's barking. My biggest need right now, our biggest need at the organization, is finding those partnerships or opportunities that will help us provide some more sustainable programming, right? With, of course, not tapping our internal resources as much. That's always very hard when we get approached for programming, but we're at a lower staffing capacity than we were in the past. And I think keeping those things in mind, like, we still want to partner, we still want to do projects, but how can we do so with our current, the current climate that we're in, correct? and with the limitations that we have. And then the biggest, our biggest resource, I think, is our ability to reach so many people. We have so many programs just in general. We have partnerships with so many different school districts in and around Northeast Ohio. And also we are a public entity. And so we have, thousands and thousands of people coming through our doors each year. And I think that is our biggest resource, is that we have the ability to reach people and we have the ability to connect to so many people out there in so many different age ranges. So thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Karen. Howard, you're new to the group, I believe. I don't think we've met before. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Howard Ji. I am from International Student Services Association. As you know, we are a non-profit organization. What we do is we support low-income immigrant students and the refugee students, support on their career development and the college planning process. We are part of a 10 school district in Northeast Ohio, part of their English second language program. Students will take our courses and our program for graduation requirement. I think the biggest resource we have is I don't think we are only one, but we are really few of ones really just focus the career development trainings and the college planning process in Northeast Ohio. And I think we're providing every year we get 100 students. We work with CSMD school district at Tom Jefferson refugee newcomer schools. We're working with 100 students every year graduation, and we have more refugees coming in October. So we have students are ready to work in the workforce and ready for continue to their careers. And I think the employment, a lot of organizations contact us, the manufacturers and a lot of places, they're really interested in our students. The bigger challenges right now for us, I think, is are growing more bigger, how we can get in more teams, more volunteers, more staff coming to our team to working with us. Because what we do is really unique area. It's not fit for everybody for this kind of position. So we are looking more talent to growing, and we are also I think another thing is let people know us more. Hope more people are involved in this kind of works at the immigrant kind of field. So this is kind of resource we need. So
thank you, Howard, and we appreciate you joining us. Another new face, one that I've read the name a million times. A lot of you in this room probably don't know a lot about Thrive Scholars yet. It's an incredible organization that Alyssa and I have had the opportunity to work with recently, and they have a new presence here in Cleveland, and that presence is filled by Stephen Lake. Stephen, we've been on email chains. I think this is our first meeting. I'm excited to see your face and hear a little more from you.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeremy. Yeah, so again, Stephen Lake, I'm with an organization called Thrive Scholars. So we are actually a national college access and success organization. And as Jeremy shared, with a new, I would say, semi-physical presence here in Cleveland. We don't have actually an office structure, but I'm here, so I'm the physical presence. And so I would say our biggest need, right, or what, let me just say, our mission is to take top talent of color from low-income backgrounds and put our young people on pathways to top-tier colleges across the country and prepare them for really high-impact, high-wage careers across sectors. The reason why I got pulled into this group, and I'm happy that I did, is that we have a few distinct tracks that our students get placed onto, and STEM in its totality is actually one of our key tracks. And so, what I can say, what do we have to offer as we continue to grow our talent pipeline here in Cleveland? We will be growing Cleveland-bred talent that will get top-notch education, and hopefully a lot of them do come back to Cleveland. But at the same time, we have a national presence and have a national talent pool of top talent. So, I mean, we are a great resource for organizations and companies to really tap this talent and to bring significant talent into our region. The one thing I'm building now is where our footprint will be. So that can be Cleveland proper, but then also the region around Cleveland. So I'm really looking forward to communicating with some of the folks I don't know, and definitely reach out if if there's ways that we can collaborate.
And I think we've talked, Alyssa, smack me if I'm wrong about this, but I think we've talked about doing specifically a Thrive Scholars webinar for NeoSTEM at some point once Stephen's fully settled and all of those things, so that you can dig a little deeper and learn more about that organization. Next up, Alexander Leslie, MyCom.
Yeah, sorry, I always forget to change it to just Alex. So I'm going to cover briefly just a couple of the things. I'm talking about our biggest need and our biggest resource, right? Okay. MyCom is a youth development intermediary organization. So we support community-based youth programming that's extended learning. And our biggest need is some of the things I've been hearing folks say they have, which is programming that's dedicated to communities, particularly underserved communities, where serving young people where they live. We have found that the less a young person, the shorter distance a young person has to go to get to a program, the more likely they are to participate, the more likely they are to thrive and get a chance to experience something exciting. To get a chance to experience something exciting near where they live will hopefully bring them further out of their shell and get them more excited about other prospects. So I heard a couple of interesting things so far, thinking about how we make use of your resources, for example, Karen. Our biggest resource is that every community of Cleveland, excepting maybe 2 or 3 neighborhoods, has a MyCom coordinator. That is somebody who is funded by us to gather monthly and support all of the community-based services for youth. They also have small grant dollars they can pass out to support projects that aren't typically funded by bigger funders. So in all of that, I think there's a way that our coordinators can help accomplish a lot of goals for folks on this call. We also serve 6 inner ring suburban communities, and we work a lot with the county library system. Becky on that particular, in those particular communities. So, we have been around since, I would say, about 13 years ago, and MyCom has morphed from a public-private partnership to being predominantly funded by the Cleveland Foundation and the Cleveland Foundation's efforts to serve youth. That said, we're striving to go out on our own here soon, not necessarily away from the foundation, but not having fiscal agent and being our own 501c3. And we're hoping that will help enable us to partner in broader ways and attract new funding streams and continue to be an intermediary that serves lots of stakeholders. So I think I'll leave it there.
Thank you, just Alex. Katie, tell us about yourself.
Hello, my name is Katie Adkins. I work at Baldwin Wallace University, which is Berea, like right by the airport. So like that's like, if you're not sure where we are, that's where we are. I'd say, just to kind of specify the 2 areas is that resources wise, so I work on STEM related initiatives. My role has been kind of growing at the institution. I worked specifically with a grant, which a lot of Ohio or schools have. It's called the Choose Ohio for STEM grant. And so we have about 90 students in our program that are scholarship through the state of Ohio to study in STEM disciplines. And the hope is that they would go to college in Ohio in STEM disciplines and grow the talent pipeline, and that they would stay in Ohio, have Ohio jobs or graduate school. And that's been around at our institution since 2008. So my role has been expanding to not just work with that group, but to really do a lot of STEM related initiative work, where we're trying to grow opportunities K through 12 and beyond to interact with the community and provide STEM related programming, as well as camps and just outreach initiatives in general. We have a couple of those things, but I'm going to be more coordinating that. So I guess in a way, like the need is that I would love to be working with a lot more of you on things like that, because we have incredible students who are studying undergraduate or graduate. A lot of them are from Northeast Ohio. So it means that even if they're a commuter, they're like still pretty much in this vicinity. So we're just going to be growing those types of programs, resources as well. Our campus is incredible. If you've not been to it, I'd love to have you come to campus because we have state-of-the-art facilities. We just launched a new building that's specifically computer science, mathematics, and engineering. And so we really have a STEM hub on campus that we want more people to know about. So we've got a great campus, a safe environment on the west side of Cleveland that we'd love to have more students, especially in that K through 12, be on our campus and also beyond in reaching out to the community. So happy to connect and really excited about future grant opportunities.
I know a few minutes ago I mentioned that we're going to end a little bit early. Clearly, I'm a liar, so I apologize, but I do think that this is good because I'm meeting lots of new people. I will try really hard to not go more than 10 minutes over, and then I owe you a coffee if we ever are allowed to see each other in real life. Next up, Angela Jones. Angela, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, wow. I just had this feeling you was calling me next. Hi, I'm Angela Jones, Senior Government Affairs Specialist for Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. We are a regional wastewater authority here in Northeast Ohio. As part of our charge, besides cleaning wastewater and stormwater, we offer a variety of educational outreach opportunities to continue to educate the public about the work that we do. And that's the quick 2-cent version.
Thank you, Angela. Becky Rinaldo.
Hello, I'm Becky Rinaldo. I am the Literacy and Learning Director for the Cuyahoga County Public Libraries. That means that I am the director of all programming system-wide. We are one of the largest providers of out-of-school time programming in the county. We have 27 branches throughout the county that ring the city of Cleveland, and we do mostly STEM focused or problem-based learning out of school time programming. You know, right now my biggest problem is that I don't have a crystal ball and I don't know when all of our kids are going to start coming back from school or when I'm going to have them for sure, because normally we are hopping with kids, and if anybody wants to partner, and Katie Atkins, I'm sending you a note right now on the side. And Alex, you certainly are a fantastic partner in MyCom, and anyone else who wants to partner. Normally we have the kids in our locations and we love to program, and I have the staff ready there to engage and work with your staff. So reach out if you haven't already and we'll partner.
Becky and I met when we were on a panel together that was in a bar for some reason. I don't even remember why, but we were panelists in a bar one time about education, which was fun. Up next, our friend Melanie Labatt-Joseph.
Hello, everyone. I'm Melanie Labatt-Joseph. I have my own consulting firm, Transformative Innovations, LLC, and I'm actually working with the Cleveland Foundation, Nordson Corporation Foundation currently on equity and STEAM issues. And this initial phase of work, I'm doing a landscape analysis of key STEAM providers, stakeholders, and funders. And so trying to make sense of all the different STEAM folks out there and helping the foundations to really think about their investment strategies moving forward in the future. So I'll be talking with a lot of you all on this call separately as a part of that work.
Thank you, Melanie. Ebony Hood, are you there with us?
I am here. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Ebony.
Hi. So I say this evening, I'll represent the community. So I'll represent my lived experience of being a CMSD grad, a Tri-C grad, a BW grad, STEM scholar with BW, all those different things. And I guess what I really want to say is that the greatest resource is that I know without a shadow of a doubt that we have amazing, amazing students, adults, families in our community in terms of resources that are standing in need of all of these things that everyone is talking about. So I just want to be sure that we are representing folks that look like me, our people of color, our Black and Brown communities, that our voices are being heard and that we can deliver quality opportunities to help uplift our community.
Absolutely. Thank you, Ebony. Ruth Ray.
Hello, can you hear me? Oh, great,
Sure.
great. Ruth Ray, Warrensville City School District. I'm so excited to be a part of this. I feel like I've grown so much over the past year coming to these meetings. Our greatest resource is our scholars and our family who needs each and every one of you. The library is one of our great partners. We're right down the street from the Warrensville County Library. So we are very grateful for that. But this year we are opening our first makerspace in a K-5 setting where our teachers and our scholars is a part of their rotation and their electives. So I am definitely in need. I'm hearing all these great things, definitely in need of, lesson planning, exposure. For the first couple of weeks, we definitely will do, we will be, high on the design process. But the biggest thing and the end result is that at our high school, we have a graphics art program and other STEM programming that we are giving our scholars the foundation to prepare them for this. So on Saturday, September 11th, we're doing a grand opening and dedication of the space. Like I say, however, I wrote a couple of names down, BW, Transformation and Innovation, a few names down. I'll definitely be reaching out to help us along the way. So this is year one, day one for our new initiative in the Warrensville City School District. And I currently serve as the STEM integration coordinator.
Thank you, Ruth. And last but not least, Robin Hilsmeyer, if you're there, I know you're driving. I'm not sure if you're able to talk to us. I'm going to go with no. Okay, so Robin can introduce herself and to answer those questions when we come together again. I'm sure that as you start talking with your teams about these opportunities, that more questions will come up. Please make sure to get those to Alyssa and John, who will make sure to get those answered, and we'll continue on in our work with Chris Spence. New Growth is also available to work with you in your organization. I think, nod, Chris, is that still correct? That is still correct. So make sure to reach out to them as well. We're very excited to have all of you with us today, all of the new faces and names. We hope you'll continue to join us as we move forward. And we will be meeting again this time next month. Alyssa, anything before we close?
Yeah, just a couple of things. We'll be unfortunately probably flooding your inboxes. We've got a whole bunch of stuff that we couldn't get to today to talk about regarding NeoSTEM and some cool opportunities that are coming our way. But I wanted to reiterate the call for more people to profile. John, can we put it in the chat one more time? The link to the STEM profiles that are up there. And I know that John is furiously and his team are furiously working on more. And I'm eager for us to launch those. But yeah, no, I think we're good. Just watch your inboxes. We'll be sending more. And thank you, Jeremy, and thank you, everybody.